Gentlemen, boys and girls, and everybody in between, welcome to another episode of the Chaps Chap Cats, a part of the Hoops Crew Media Network. I think I stuffed up the name of our show there for the first time in like at least 100 episodes. I think I said the Chaps Chap Cats. Anyway, it's the Chaps Chat Cats. My name's Jake, and I'm joined in the virtual studio by Sambo and Johnny. How are you, fellas?
Fantastic.
Sensational.
Energy bursting out of the screen.
And
Those sound like the responses.
Tanks are now empty.
I've got
Those sounded like the
7
responses
layers of energy.
Oh, yes, John. Seventh heaven. Going to get into all of the action from Cats v Blues round 7 recap. Geelong marching to a 7-0 start for the first time since 2013, Chaps. After we were picked by a few in the media to be a bottom 4 side, the cliff was right there and coming. But anyway, we'll get into all of that. But before we do that, I've got to take care of a couple of quick bits of business. First of all, I have to say a big thank you to our network sponsor, Valhalla Brewing, the nectar of the gods, the ale of the gods, chaps. If you are in and around Geelong, if you're out in North Geelong, go and check out the Valhalla Brew Hall. And if you're down the CBD, make sure you check out the tap room, Valhalla Brewing. We appreciate their support and their sponsorship of the Hoops Crew Media Network. So, having thanked them, we can now get into the rest of the program as we dive into Cats v Blues and all of the action from that. Later on in the show, for our Patreon subscribers, we'll jump into a Patreon player focus on Zach Toohey. We're going to take the opportunity, chaps, to get around Zach Toohey because we don't know how many more seasons and games we'll have the opportunity to focus in on him. So if you want to, indulge in that part of the show, go on over and sign up to the Hoops Crew Patreon. Start your 7-day free trial today. All right, let's talk it. Let's talk Cats v Blues. Geelong moved to their first 7-0 start since 2013, and this is how it went down, chaps. The Cats got out of the blocks hot. Jeremy Cameron, a goal after just 93 seconds. Carlton hit back through Jordan Boyd after 4 minutes. Then the Cats go bang, bang, kick a couple in a row. It was Brian Myers. It was Zach Toohey up and about, tugging the jumper, much to the annoyance of many Carlton fans. Patrick Cripps responded with a goal, but then the Cats kicked the next 3 of the match to take an early 3-goal advantage in the second quarter. Now, Carlton, to their credit, they kept coming. This was a good game. This was an attacking game. I was reminded, chaps, in many moments of games that Geelong played against St Kilda from about 2009 to 2011 when both were up and about at the pointy end of the home and away season. And they would just go at each other heavyweight style. Two teams that knew they'd be featuring at the pointy end and they'd just trade haymakers back and forth. And I thought that's what we got for 2.5 hours. So the Blues pulled it back. The Cats kick away again with 2 goals to Ollie Henry and Jezza Cameron. The Blues, through Cottrell and Curnow, pull it back. But again, Geelong found answers. 3 of them consecutively to Max Holmes, Zach Toohey, and then Brian Myers to take, about a 24-point lead early in the third quarter. Carlton, the next 3 goals. Geelong respond. Carlton get the next 2 goals. Geelong, the final goal of the third quarter to take an 87-76 lead, an 11-point advantage into the last quarter. Carlton, early chances in the final term to Curnow, Durden, and De Koning. They all miss. The Cats, they didn't. As they said in The Wire, if you come at the king, you best not miss. Geelong, 4 goals in the space of about 9 minutes. It was Zach Toohey, it was Jeremy Cameron, it was Ollie Henry, and it was Jack Bowes to almost put the result beyond doubt. 30-odd points. Blues fans started to head for the exits. They headed too early, though, because credit to their team. They fought back the Blues. Cripps on 21.5 minutes. Matthew Kennedy, 23 minutes, 53 seconds. Blake Acres, 25 minutes, 41 seconds. And Blake Acres again on 27 minutes left the result in some doubt and under 10 points. But Chaps, all across the 2024 season, Geelong have found answers upon answers, and they found it again. Jeremy Cameron, his 5th goal of the contest, put a bow on it, and the Cats emerge from a true heavyweight bout, their 38th top 4 victory since the year 2000 out of 60 games, thanks to Sir Swamp Thing on Twitter. They win this one 18-10, 118 to 15-15, 105. I'll flick to you first, Sambo. Your thoughts on the game?
It was, you've summed it up so well. You took me back there, painted a picture.
Yes.
But I think the other game that you referenced during the match was the prelim against the Pies in a
the
couple of seasons
qualifying
ago
final?
of qualifying final. Sorry, yeah.
Yep.
Of just that kind of, and I mean, Pies fans may disagree with me here, but what that game, it always felt like we were gonna win. Like we just managed to like be just ahead, or just, even if it wasn't always on the scoreboard, just in the flow of the game, the way the game felt, regardless of statistics. And I like that against the Blues as well. Like it just felt like the Blues were fighting really, really hard to stay within grasp of us. That we were just miles too efficient all around the ground. And so it was a really tense game, but I probably didn't feel really anxious until that comeback towards the end in that last sort of, what was it, seven or so minutes. Because I remember it was about when I said to you guys, there's just enough time that this still feels a little stressful, and then they started to that's when they started to kick goals and got back within it with a couple of kicks. That point, obviously, I thought, oh, this could get absolutely pinched from us. This would be absolutely heartbreaking. But beyond that moment, I thought that it was incredibly professional from the Cats. I think we've used that word a lot this season. That we just did what had to be done to maintain a little dominance. The great thing at starting, it's it's a good analogy for the whole year, how we the game starting early and getting out the gates with a few in the bag allows that fight to always be on your terms a little bit. Blues could be back, but always trying to make up ground. It's a great position to be in as a really slickly oiled, well structured team. You can rely on your systems and your structures to do the work, and basically just maintain a little bit of an egg there, which is kind of how I saw it playing out. It's kind of how it unfolded, and really, I mean, I'll stop blathering on, but really, it was kind of largely how I felt like the game was going to go. I didn't necessarily expect it to feel the way it did with that huge crowd. Definitely added a bit of buzz to it. But just in terms of, they got the Lions' share of possessions, they got the Lions' share of contested possessions, they got the Lions' share of the clearances. They had a lot of midfield minutes. They got a lot of players up in the old AFL fantasy points. But I think it was all within the parameters of how the Cats see games going at the moment. I thought it was interesting that Chris got in the press conference, said that they're not necessarily setting up to get beaten in those numbers, like, in those stats, but basically they, would have enough answers to it when that does happen, which has pretty much been every game this year. So it's interesting to know that, we're getting all these wins and doing pretty well, but as far as the Cats are concerned, they're not 100% satisfied. It's not yet working at peak efficiency. They weren't really happy with. He seems pretty unhappy with the way the Blues were able to get back into it at the end, and they certainly seem to be trying to work on those midfield numbers. So, yeah, it's we'll obviously get into it a little bit more, but in general, I feel I feel really satisfied. Like I don't think there's any tremendously upsetting surprises in there. I thought the Cats acquitted themselves really well, and I really don't see how anyone's, anything can happen from this point on. But I don't really see how anyone's questioning how justified the Cats are to be where they are right now, this week, at this point in the year.
Yeah, no, for sure. Johnny?
Yeah, it's Sam's summed it up pretty well there. But yeah, I would say to sort of that end part where the Blues were coming back, would say I was a little bit nervous, but also quietly pretty confident that the Cats would find a way to win that game. And as soon as, because it was stuck in our defensive half for so long in that last few minutes, I was like, if we get it out, we're going to get a goal. And lo and behold, we got it out. Tyson Stengel does Tyson Stengel things and finds Cameron for the second time in a row, and he steals the game. And yeah, I just had that feeling that no matter what the Blues threw at us that last quarter, we had enough of a buffer that was just going to be beat too much, which it was in the end, thanks to, as I said, Tyson Stengel, brilliance getting it to Cameron. And yeah, overall, it sort of felt like went away. I think we talked about how it would. Blues dominated contested ball, dominated clearance. Well, I wouldn't say dominated, but they, as Sam said, they had the lion's share of all those stats, disposals, inside 50s. What else? Had disposals, inside 50s, handballs. Disposal efficiency was only a little bit better than ours, but the one that matters the most, efficiency inside 50, we were up by nearly 20%, and score. And I think Cats are so effective at just letting the teams get the ball as much as they want, let their players use it as much as they want. But as soon as the Cats get that ball from either defensive 50 or in a midfield, we're able to move it so quick and so effectively and so quickly that so many teams just don't have the awareness or ability to keep up with that. And yeah, just there's so many times where the Cats were just streaming inside 50 to an open 50, where the Cats were just outnumbered the Blues, or it was passed perfectly to a leading player. It's just really impressive win. And again, it's another statement game by the Cats. Big statement game is Carlton had just come off beating the Giants pretty effectively, so they would have been on a high. Cats, obviously, we beat the Lions in a really pretty horrendous weather, and we lose Dangerfield, and it's all good. It's like losing Stewart last week. We lose Dangerfield this week, and I didn't feel any stress. I didn't feel worried that we lost Dangerfield. I was like, well, he played 50, inside 50 for a quarter. We seemed fine in the midfield, so I wasn't worried. Plus, when you have Tom Atkins as your sub and you lose Dangerfield, and Tom Atkins comes on, it's pretty. It's not a bad compromise at all. And I'll say the same that I feel about Tom Stewart missing this week. No matter how long Dangerfield's out for, I just know the Cats have got this covered. And we got Guthrie back. We got Atkins. We got Jai Clark. We got Nevitt. I think a lot of people in the AFL media will be trying to spin that the Cats are in danger because we lost Dangerfield. I just think the Cats going to be fine. We're not relying on one player to do all the heavy lifting. We got 22 players to do the heavy lifting together as a unit. And that's what happened on the weekend. And that's what will continue to happen throughout this year.
Yeah, and it's not like we haven't played without Dangerfield. Sorry, just quickly, just not we haven't played with Dangerfield this year. Like, was it the Dogs game that he missed? I can't remember. There was a couple of games anyway where he was out because we gave him the extra rest, and you can always bring renowned midfielder Tom Stewart straight back in as well. Chuck him into the middle, Just quickly, just a couple of stats, and then I'll hand pass back to you, Sambo, because I know you had some extra thoughts there. Cats, as I said, 18-10, 118 to 15-15, 105 victors. Cameron, 5 goals, 1. Zach Tui, 3 straight. Ollie Henry, 3-1. And the disposals, it was the return of Cam Guthrie, 27 touches to lead the way for the Cats. Max Holmes with 26. Mitch Duncan with 24. For the Blues, Charlie Curnow, 3-2. Harry Mackay, 2 goals, 2. I thought Mackay, if I was doing votes for Carlton, would have been up there for me. I thought, despite Curnow kicking more goals, Mackay looked the better, more dangerous forward, the way he led up and marked around the ground. Elijah Hollins, 2 straight. Walsh, 31 touches, Cripps, 29, and Blake Acres, 28. And just before I slipped that hand pass back your way, Sambo, just to touch on like the idea of how we're defining dominance and that sort of thing in terms of clearances. I thought Stanley got a bit of a bath in the ruck. 34 hitouts to 44 was the final total, but clearances were split 38 to 44.
Yeah,
So
I was gonna
six
say.
clearances difference to Carlton. And then you look at the summary. I think this is a really important number. When you look at the match timeline, after Carlton, draw close and Jeremy Cameron gets the ceiling goal, there's a little note here. Geelong responds with their 3rd goal from a centre clearance bounce. The Cats have scored 3-2-20 from 12 centre bounce clearances compared to 2-4-16 from 16 centre clearances for the Blues. So again, you get to that thing of great, you've got +6 in clearances, but who was the more efficient team when it came to inside 50s? Carlton went inside 50 60 plus times for 15-15. The Cats scored 18 goals, 10 from 40 odd. So again, I think I've seen a lot of people on Twitter, there's this panic. Oh, we got smashed again in the disposal. We got smashed. We've got to stop judging this 2024 Cats team on stats from another era. So with that, I'll hand pass back to you, Sambo, to add your extra thoughts.
No, there's there's so many things to discuss. So I'll try not to just blab on, but I think that leads. I will say just quickly in Reece Stanley's defense, the
Sure.
the Tom de Kooning also got a lot for the Blues. So Reece Stanley was only 7 hitouts behind like the main ruck from the Blues. So I think
sure.
I think I don't have, but I reckon the hitouts to advantage might give maybe a greater display of where Stanley was eaten, because I do think the hitouts is a weird kind of stat because often their hands are in the same place. Like there was literally one that I was going to bring up when we were watching it where Stanley's hand was first, but it was I think it was Tom de Kooning at the time who actually made the action for the ball, and he literally collected Stanley's hand and pushed it into the ball. So I was like, whose hit out is that? Because it's come off Stanley's hand, but he didn't actually. But it was actually Kooning made the action. But it's a weird one. Like I think, yeah, it's weird because statistically it doesn't look that bad. But I know what you mean, Jake. Like watching it, it felt like he was getting a little bit towed up. So it was 7-3. Not Stanley over as far as hitouts to advantage. So yeah, I think oftentimes Stanley was doing good work to be there and to get to it, but he certainly wasn't necessarily setting us up that well with the work he then did. But also his around the ground work was really good. I've watching highlights, not necessarily disposals. I mean, but just his coverage. We were talking about that run that Close did, where we looked at how far Close had covered. He never got the ball. And Stanley was another one. When you're watching the highlights, the amount of times you see Stanley like loping along the ground, never gets near the ball, gets it of any kind, but he covers a lot of ground. Like, again, I'm not trying to like give out sympathy points here, but I think he was doing a lot of work. But yeah, I think the hit outs to advantage was just not it wasn't his strongest game for sure. But the thing I wanted to go with was more than that was the efficiency. And that, I have also seen the argument of if Blues had a kick straight, like we were the better team on the night if we could have just converted. And I find that really funny. And I'll put my hand up and say, I've been that too. There's times when the Cats have lost and I've got, if we just could have just kicked straight. Like I think we deserve that game. But it's funny because you go So does kicking now not count in AFL? So it's like we're the best team except for our kicking. It's called football. You want to be pretty good at kicking. Like it's funny how you can, as a fan, I've definitely done this. I'm sure you can take the stat you want to ignore and go, oh, forget about that one. But we would have won. We would have won if we could just do this thing. So yeah,
Yes.
Jake slipping the stats through the chat here to say Stanley was 5th most pressure at the Cat 20. So yeah, I think he did. I think his effort was there. He probably just didn't look that great on the night. But to wind up and then let you move on to another point with the efficiency, I think, and this also links in with what John was saying about feeling pretty calm even in that last push from the Blues, and what I got sucked into was kind of going, oh, they've been kicking wayward all night. If the Blues just fix up their kicking here, we could be in trouble. But you got to kind of look at the bigger scenario around why they're kicking so many points, and that is where they're kicking at goal from.
Yeah.
And that they weren't most of their shots at goal. It's not actually like they had tremendous good opportunities, sitting in the goal square and kept shanking it. Like most of the
Although there was
times
that
when
one.
they got there definitely was some examples of kicks that they should have kicked, that they didn't. But for the most part, when the Blues got a mark in what you would call a scoring position, it was kicking laterally. It was coming in. They were coming in from the wing, looking at attack, realizing how well Cats was set up and cutting it back. And I remember the commentators on the night saying, "This is how you do it. This is how you cut Geelong up. They're too set up. You kick it backwards." But what that actually does is just Geelong essentially allowed them to have marks in lower percentage positions. So kicking from 45, 40 plus out, where it's obviously the further out you go, the harder it is to kick a goal. So I think I got sucked into that a little bit. But when you actually really look at it, that inside 50 count is really, really like sort of blown out of proportion. Like it makes it look like we were getting the same amount of, like the same kinds of looks at goal, but the Blues had more of them and were just kicking poor. It's really about where those inside 50s ended up and how they were then, like the position they were in to convert. It's not just about did they kick a goal or not. It's the percentage of how likely they are to be able to kick a goal from where they ended up getting their stoppage.
You had a stat,
what
Johnny?
stat did you have, Johnny? Yeah.
No, it was just that one. I was going to say that one.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because there was I can't remember. Yeah, do you have it like the specific numbers, John? Because there was a breakdown of how many shots on goal the Blues had from within I think it was only five.
Yeah, it wasn't
like scoring shots or like attempts on goal from within 30 meters.
Yeah, I think it was like there wasn't many, and I think they scored like 2 goals, whereas the Cats from the same area, I think they were like 5 goals straight or something.
Yeah.
It's like
that's
right. That position where you want to have a kick, the Cats get plenty of times where they allow the opposition, as you said, Sam, to they'll defend that area extremely well, but they'll let you have the kicks from 45 plus, where it's like I think it was like 50%, 45 plus of getting the goal, and then outside of 50, it's like 25% you're going to get that goal. So yeah, the Cats are happy to let you have those really low percentage shots at goal, but they rarely let you have the close ones. And goal kicking for a lot of players is based on confidence. So if they're getting shots from far out and then they keep missing, they get one in close. They're like, do they get inside their own head and go, shit, if I don't kick this one, we're going to be further down. They overthink it, try and overkick it. And I think that's what happened. I'm not sure who it was, but a Blues player was in that perfect spot to have a shot at goal, nearly directly in front, and still shanked it. And it's like, yeah, just gets in their heads a little bit, and the Cats defend it extremely well.
Johnny, all this talk of like players and their kicking confidence and you're getting in their heads, you're going to make the analytics people very angry here. And I like to keep everyone happy, but so we better just like get back to some hard data. No, just what
Hard data.
again? The timeline on the old match
7
center
and
has
0.
the interesting little.
7-0.
That's right. How's that
That's
for your
some
hard
hard data.
data? 7 and zip, toe of the ladder.
I will say,
Just a
Oh.
stat here from early in the fourth quarter. The Blues have generated 24 forward half intercepts, but have converted this into just 3 goals to 20. Geelong has scored the same amount from 13 forward half intercepts. So again, Geelong has almost half the forward half intercepts going into that last quarter, but they'd scored the same amount as the Blues had. So it's again another stat in which Geelong were just ruthlessly efficient.
and of the disposals, you're saying how people on Twitter sort of losing their mind about how the Cats are absolutely getting dominated in disposals. We only had 33 less disposals than the Blues. So it's not like the Cats were actually absolutely blown out of the water. The only spot they were blown out of the water was kicks. But that's because the Cats were so well set up down the line that the Blues had no choice but to use the kick a lot. Whereas when the Cats had it, they have to move it fast, effectively with the handballs. Like the Cats must be training the handball game so much during the off season because it is. I think they'll probably be one of the best teams at handballing themselves out of high pressure situations and cleanly as well. Like the amount of times they can handball it to a guy who's on the boundary line, who then handballs it back to the guy who handballed it to him. Then they move along, and it's like the triangles in soccer. They're just continuously using each other, getting out of trouble. Doesn't work all the time, but it works more than half, and it's such a crazy thing to watch and see happen, and just go far out. That's clean and that's effective. And the best part is it's not part of the senior group of guys. It's not the Dangerfields. It's not the Guthries who are doing it. It's not Stanley. It's not Stewart or Tui. It's all these young guys, all these up and coming stars that are there getting the team out of the trouble in the midfield. So yeah, the Cats. I feel like the Cats are just setting themselves up for a lot of success this year and years to come. And we're doing it without Dangerfield. We're doing it without Stewart. We're doing it without Guthrie.
Here's a stat for you. Geelong had 17 players have at least one clearance. Carlton had 11. So another little stat there. Just the spread of contributors, and
still
we're going to talk about him more later. But I tell you who the first person to get over 30 disposals this year for the Cats is going to be. It's going to be Jeremy Cameron. Guarantee it. Put a lock on it. Jessica Cameron to have 30 plus touches.
You don't think Cam Guthrie?
I was going to say Cam Guthrie.
Oh, well, that's true. He came in and got 27.
Yeah, not a bad first ever.
My last sort of general comment on this game, and then you guys throw in anything else you want before we move on to talking some individual sort of player bits and pieces outside of the votes, is just that it's fascinating to me that so often the narrative that comes out of these games when the Cats win them is, oh, but geez, Carlton gave them a scare. They really got close. If one or two things, it's like the Dogs game or what was the other one that we had a close game earlier in the year? If this thing just goes this way, and it's like, yeah, but it doesn't. And why do you not get credit for that? Like, it was a ripper game. It was brilliantly played. It was two really good teams. And for the 38th time in 60 games, Geelong wins. Like, in terms of top four clashes. As I said to you, chaps, Geelong have won as many top four games as the next closest team has played since the year 2000. Like, I don't get why. I mean, I do get why. I suppose people are sick of us. People are sick of Geelong winning. They're sick of seeing them be up and about. They're now 7 and zip, and people are just like, when will this end? But another take I bloody hated seeing this week on Twitter was that Chris Scott, again, he's only successful because he inherited a great team. Could be sacrilegious, and you can get angry at me if you want in the comments, Cats fans, but I think Chris Scott would coach the pants off Bomber Thompson in a head-to-head matchup. Just my opinion.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
Yeah, I tend to agree.
and when you get
Love
former
Bomber. I think he was
players,
amazing.
yeah. Anyway, when you have former players coming out and saying they only won the flag because of Chris Scott, it's like, well, if the players, all the players, it's
Yeah.
not just one or two players, it's every single player from that premiership team have all come out and gone, if Chris Scott wasn't the coach, we would not won that. He's the reason why they won that 2011 flag. It's because he brought them together, got them refocused, got them on the idea that they could be successful. And, well, if people still don't like that, well, we won 2022 with a whole new
Yeah.
team, only a couple of players from 2011. So I don't know. I
And
don't understand that either.
I think we discussed Chris Scott and how hard that 2011 thing actually was in retrospect. A few episodes ago, the three of us gave Scotty a good love up about how undervalued and underrated he was at that time. But it's funny because you've got people taking it away from Chris Scott, and I think at the same time you've got other, very successful people in the media who are literally saying the opposite, where they're saying Geelong are the top now, and the question will be going forward: how far can a coach take you? Basically, insinuating the team's shite, but they've got the best coach in the league, and it's gonna do them in the home and away season. But you can't coach your way out of the finals, kind of like, yeah. It's just and this is why we've taken a vow not to mention by name any of these media talking heads, because they don't need any more clicks on their clickbaity titles coming away from us. But it's been a really mixed bag this year and this week, but it's just the funny thing about it this week is we knew it would be interesting seeing the media reports once we went 7-0, but it's been different. I feel like they've been bending over backwards a little bit to pull some excuses out of their backsides. They haven't gone with the avenues that I thought they'd go with. So at least they're
No.
keeping it interesting. At least now the criticism is their coach is too good. The coach is too good. That can only take you so far. They've got to stop
That's
relying
right.
on a coach.
You only
I
get
mean, what is a coach really?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's not going to be out there in the heat of the moment with you.
What good
Just
is
quick,
a coach
let's
in a
talk
foxhole,
let's talk some individual stuff from players. I think also some individual moments. The Zach Tui goal was that first one he kicked where Danger gets a hand pass out to the far side. Tui storms through and nails it. The whole atmosphere of that game felt finals like to me. I thought it was a real treat if you're a neutral. Jessa Cameron's left foot snap. And the celebration that accompanied it. As you said, John, if Tom Papley did that, it'd be the front page, mate. The game's greatest celebrator. But are there individual moments that stood out to you where maybe, just if we bat back and forward for a minute of moments where players stood up and did big things, because this is as close as we've got to see Geelong being tested in 2024 in a finals-like atmosphere. I'll hand pass to you, John, first. What was a moment that stood out to you of there was someone who stood up when it was absolutely at its hottest?
Tom Atkins, when he was up against two Blues players and he forced it out of bounds, and they had ample opportunity to get away from him, but he just was like, nah, you're not going away. You can try and handball over the top of me, but I'm going to jump and just tap it out of bounds. Yeah, I thought that moment of Tom Atkins just doing Tom Atkins things, and I think that's the beauty of having him on as a sub. It's not going to happen again for a while, but to have a player like that come on as a sub when Dangerfield goes out, and he does that for a quarter and just brings that energy, that attack, that ferociousness. It just lifts the whole team, and you could see it when he did that. It really spurred the team on, and I think that's when we may have gone and kicked a goal, or was not soon If it wasn't before that, it was a bit after. It might have been in the third quarter. Can't remember exactly when it was, but it was just one of those moments. It's just like, yeah, that's a team lifting moment when one player takes on two opposition players and doesn't let them get away. And it's just, yeah, that was a big moment.
Sambo, anyone stand out? Any moment stand out to
Yeah, I
you?
mean, probably another Zach Dewey one, which was that chase down tackle he did,
Mhm.
which was I have real trouble placing these moments sometimes. It was quite early in the game though, I think, right? That
I
tackle
actually
when
can't
he
remember it. So you're
oh,
talking me
it
through
was
it at the minute.
I think it was Tui's first goal, actually. I think because he kicked 3, didn't he? And I think it was
Yeah.
his first one, and please correct me if I'm wrong, but, it was just a real tone-setting tackle when, you know, in a game that's high pressure and in this day and age when as a fan, you feel like you're calling for ball every 30 seconds and it's not going your way, and you really start to stare into the mirror and question, "Is it me? Do I not understand these rules?" It was one of those tackles where you just
Yeah.
stood up because you're like, "Yes, that's it. That's exactly what it is. I can call for this one, and I know it's gonna be." The guy's caught out in no man's land, had prior opportunity, looked around, didn't know what to do with it, until
Yeah.
he just stormed in and wrapped him up and took him to ground and got the free kick. Um, yeah, again, and this is why spoiler alert 2 is not in my votes, but I really wanted him to be, but just one of those things where the statistical weight across the game, there was so many players that did so much, and he probably had 4 or 5 really good moments, but then not so much outside of that.
Mm.
But yeah, that was one of those ones where you just at that moment I felt really good about that game.
Yeah, I was just thinking. I think I've got one. And it was a goal, and it was Jack Jimmy Bartel Bowes with
Yeah.
that goal from long range. Just grab it, snap it, in it goes. Like from distance, it just transported me instantly back to watching Bartel, who would just kick these freakish sort of goals where he just slap it on the boot and it'd go like 55 meters soaring through in the rain or whatever. And it was just like, I didn't know you could kick that long, or
Yeah, it just
yeah, I
kept
didn't know you
carrying.
could kick that quickly or whatever. Yeah, and I just thought that they've, as someone on Twitter said, it was a bit another one of those sort of they can't keep getting away with this, where it's like they've taken Jack Bowes, who was essentially the set of steak knives with the pick that we took Jai Clark with, and they've turned Jack Bowes, into a pretty much a lock player each week, and I just thought that was massive. A guy who maybe, if you reflect back on when he came to the club, and there was lots of talk about fresh start, wanted to go somewhere where he'd feel loved up a bit, and geez, he must be feeling loved up at the moment, and deserving of it. That was a pivotal
Well,
moment. If you think about some of the goals that Carlton missed, and then you have Jack Bowes kicking something like that, and it's
yeah.
like that's a difference making thing.
Well, I can say that there was an article, I think it came out either in The Age or something. It was online or something. I couldn't read it because I had to do the subscription and I didn't want to do
Don't have
that.
that kind of money.
But don't have that kind of money. And the headline was, I read a little bit of it, and he basically said that the trade to Geelong was the best decision he's ever made in football, because he said he's
Mm.
getting that love, the love and support that he needed, and thriving. And he says it's the best career decision he ever made. And yep, it's
Well, he might have
showing up
forced
on the
Jai
field.
Clark out of the side.
Who knows for now?
I think
But
too, the other thing, he kicks a ripper goal. He also led the game with 10 tackles.
yeah, yep,
Quick fire one. Johnny, have you got another moment that comes to mind, or Sambo? Either of you, if you've
yep.
got one?
I've
Yeah.
mentioned it already, but I'm just gonna re-mention Tyson Stengel for both his setup goals for Jeremy Cameron. I think that both those moments, you could forgive him for having a shot at goal, and he looked both times. He had a quick look, and then he did the team thing, did the Geelong thing, and sent it perfectly to Jeremy Cameron. Jeremy Cameron both
Mm.
times, but that second one was just like a perfect kick. No defender, no matter who how good a defender you are, you're never going to be able to stop that second kick. It was just inch, millimeter perfect for Cameron. And I think, those two moments by Stengel were just elite and just oozed the Geelong style of if someone's in a better spot, go for it.
Sambo, you got
And
another one?
on the flip, there was the Jeremy Cameron assist as well. The cheeky little take the full
Outrageous.
time, squash the football, do the whole thing, and then run in and kick a cheeky 20-meter drop punt
Underneath
that
the
was,
guy.
Yeah. It
That
almost
is-
looked like it as a visual glitch in a video game. The way it went under him, like it kind of looked like it clipped through him and went. That was brilliant. I mean, for all his goals and all that kind of stuff, Jeremy Cameron's just he has his highlights reel. Of all the players, he might have the most varied positional highlights in his highlights reel. Takes screamers as an intercept in the back, giant long bombs and torps and goal assists from just outside the arc. Yeah, he's an absolute
Or
freak.
tapping it back inside
Oh,
to a player.
the Brian Myers one though, too. Where the back ins. There was some 2022 grand final level stuff going on at times. I've just got one last moment that I want to chuck in there, which was, and I said we'd talk about it on the pod. Sam, you brought my attention to it when at the time. Brad Close on a goal early in the game, running from, I think it was just about, I don't know, D50 inside forward 50. He's running the edge of the boundary the whole way, supporting the move.
85% of the ground along the boundary.
Yeah. And never receives it, but never stops running. And you look at his stats for the game, Chaps. I'm just trying to scroll down to him to find him. Brad
I've got one
Close
more.
has
Two more.
35 AFL fantasy points. Only better than 5 other players on the ground. He has 11 touches, couple of tackles, and 2 goal assists. But I can guarantee you that in that coach's box, they will have all those numbers, distance run, etc. And this team would be nothing without the like Brad Close, who do it every damn week, whether they're hitting the scoreboard or not. So he is, in some ways, you could make an argument that Brad Close defines the new era of Geelong. It's not about him, it's about the team. Johnny, fire us off with a couple of quick ones. Sambo, wrap us up if you've got one, and then we'll hit votes.
My one of them is Cameron Guthrie's first few minutes on the ground when he took that absolute screamer. I was like,
I was going to have that one,
beautiful. And then the other one, I saw this on, can't remember what AFL show it was, but it was a thing they brought up, and it just goes into how that's similar to Brad Close, how the Cats just move it up the ground and just don't stop running. And it shows footage of Cats deep inside defensive 50 and a highlight Tui, and the ball gets moved out really quick. And it's going along the wing. It goes to Jeremy Cameron outside of 50, and he kicks it inside 50. And then there's Tui, who's run from defensive 50 right through the middle of the ground, full pelt. Reece Stanley just ahead of him, and then Tui comes on in the side and takes a mark and kicks his third goal. It's just like, no. At his age, he runs the entire ground, basically sprinting to keep in line with the ball, and still has the energy and composure to take a great mark and then slot his third goal. It's just like, Jesus, that is impressive to run that far, that fast, and still kick a goal. That was mightily impressive.
Yeah, absolutely. I've definitely got some extra thoughts on like Tui and players like him being around this squad, which I'll share in the 2024. In the Patreon player focus. Sambo, have you got one last one, or we go to votes?
I was just gonna say there was, I think it was Collar, the spoil like around the body.
Oh yes.
It was like Yeah, it was like there was like some Sam DeConing stuff where again you're like, how did his hand get further than the hand of the player in front of him? Yeah, some of those
Yeah.
efforts were like, those times when Carlton did get it, where they wanted it and in a dangerous spot. And yeah, the way we'd set up and the effort from some of the Cats was just phenomenal. I think apparently Charlie Curnow got targeted like 18 times or something across the
Yep.
game, and he came away with. Did he kick 3 in the end? I think he kicked
3
3
in
in
the
the
end.
end, but
3 in
still,
the end, yep.
I think to keep him to 3 from 18 deliveries, that's pretty good.
Pretty good. It's that moment where I thought,
5 mark.
he's a Carlton mark. And in his
Yeah,
and
it just didn't
bang.
seem like there was any possible way that he could
No.
legally get in the way of that, and yet he did.
Yeah, no, love it, chaps. I like all of those a lot, but let's get into some votes. I'm going to lead us off here. I'm just looking across who you've got in your vote, so I'll focus on one in particular that you guys haven't got in yours, and you can each probably do a bit likewise. I'm going 1 vote to Max Holmes, just good Max Holmes type dashing impact from down half back. Brian Myers gets my 2 votes. The little tap, sheer class and smart arsery, but to go with 2 goals straight, 4 marks, 6 tackles, 5 clearances, 404 meters gained, and a goal assist. He, again, a bit like Brad Close, sort of typifies Geelong. Maybe not the most athletically, outrageously explosive and gifted player out there, and yet super smart, super disciplined, and a player who the coaching staff have found a way to make the most of their skill set, which I think is a very that does sort of typify this Cats team, getting the most out of everybody. And 3 votes for the person who I think is the best player in the game, Jeremy Cameron. Absolute freak and a player that I am so privileged to watch. So glad. I'm glad to just watch him no matter who he played for. I used to like watching him for the Giants, but to get seasons of him in the hoops, to get his YouTube vlog down on his farm, and to get he is a man for a big performance. He's now he was averaging 3 goals against Carlton. He kicked 6 goals, 1 against them last time. I think he's got 5 goals, 1 this time. So 11 goals in his last 2 games against the Blues. He is a destroyer. Sambo, what are your votes? And then Johnny.
My votes, I've gone 1 to Jack Bowes. I mean, I guess he's the one I could focus on a little bit more, but I think I'll keep more brief because we
Interested in your thoughts on Holmesy. You've got him in.
I do have him in. Did you not talk about Holmes a little bit?
A little. I was
but,
wondering if you had deeper things.
well, I'll see. When
Elaborate on
when I
whatever.
get there. Look, Bose, I think I think it was about halfway through. I think I said to you lads, I said, Bose is going to be pretty stiff not to get votes. He's going to have an absolute mare from this point on not to be not to be in there. And he didn't. He might not grab a lot of attention from the general sort of AFL watchers, but yeah, I just thought he was everywhere. I thought his work rate and his effort was second to none. So he got a vote. Holmes, I think, is just like sneakily creeping up to be. I think you mentioned this in. I don't actually think it was any of our episodes, Jake. I think it was your live reaction to his signing his contract, and you mentioned that he might be the one of the most valuable players. And I agree. I think he's sneakily creeping up to be that. He's certainly one of the most exciting players because of his, I think, potential. He's that he's operating at this level at the moment at such consistent efficiency. But you still feel like he's got more. He's got more to give. And I think the other thing that I really run the risk of wandering into the weeds here. So I'll try and I'll try and keep it brief. But I think
It's all right.
I think we were talking about meters gained, and I'm the one who brought up meters gained per disposal a while back, and then you added to that, Jake, the concept of some of those meters gains are travelled by foot. I think that is really sort of undervalued, and I've heard a couple of people mention it in the media this week, but I think it's really undervalued that the Cats set up really well in their back line. You know, everyone talks about them being a defense first team, but then they're so fast and they attack and they somehow have so many people up forward as well. And I think a part of that is afforded by players like Holmes. And there's a few others as well. And I actually think Tui is one of the, it was one of these. I don't think he's this person every time, but last night he was one of those players that was actually picking it up and running with it. Is that we can set up behind the ball, you know, we can set up our defensive structure and work to earn the turnover. But instead of getting the turnover and then blasting it up into the midfield and hope the midfield can sort something out, in which case we would be probably undermanned because we set up so heavily in the back line. So the fact that we have players that can run with it, that can get it out of there without needing, even though our handball game, as John said, our handball game is very strong. After a couple of handballs, we've got these players that can run with it. And Holmes is key and first and foremost among these, is that those other players that have been set up back can flood forward, like we were talking about Close doing it, like we're talking about Stanley doing it, like we're talking about Tui doing it, without having to linger and be an option in the midfield, in the halfback or the midfield option. And so they can all push straight up. And so by the time Holmes has run it from the defensive arc to just beyond halfway, he's got half of those players that were just next to him are ahead of him now because they're able to run the way he's running around the outside with the ball, bouncing it. And so I think that is actually really key to the way that Geelong are able to defend so heavily and so like stoically, but then somehow turn it over and also have extra men up forward is because of the players that can run with it. And Holmes is obviously the key one. The one, if we could have three of him, we'd be unstoppable. If we had three players that could run with it at his speed. So I guess I did have slightly deeper thoughts on Holmes, but I don't necessarily think it was to do with that game specifically so much as it is to do with the underrated part of his speed. It's not just exciting. It's not just, oh, he could dodge through some players and kick a goal. It's actually, I think, the fact that he can move it so fast with the ball, but he's still not traveling at the speed that a kick would, means that he's drawing opposition players to him, creating space and allowing his other half-backers and midfielders to push up, and now they're forward options ahead of him. And then I gave my three votes to Jeremy Cameron.
It's a great point. You can't outrun a kick, but you can keep up with Holmes. And the importance of that, those run and carry players. And I'll tell you what, another one who's developing very, very nicely in the VFL, and any of the Patreon subscribers who checked out my VFL recap from the weekend would already know this. And you can check that one out for free on YouTube. So go and hit that up. O'Sheen Mullen, Chaps, is looking insanely comfortable down halfback. And, you know, maybe we can't have three of them, but we might have two. He's looking very comfortable with a footy. Your votes, John.
My votes. Well, no surprise to anyone, I think, who's listened to the show long enough. My one vote's going to Cam Guthrie. Just because stuff you all, because one of my favourite players. And I tell you what, when you take a mark like that and perform like that in your first game
right
there, when everyone online was saying, you're making a mistake bringing Guthrie back, I thought, no, they're not making a mistake. If you actually pay attention to the Cats and watch the Cats long enough and understand the coaching team, they don't make mistakes by bringing players back too early. They bring them back when they're bright, and they did with Guthrie, and it paid off perfectly. 27 disposals, 7 intercepts, couple of score and assists, couple of tackles, great mark, looked comfortable, and comes back in the right time because Dangerfield goes down with a hamstring, and we've got this superstar ready to come back in. So yeah, Guthrie gets my one just because he's a absolute sensation and looking fit as anything. My 2 votes giving to Jack Bowes. Same reason as you guys said. Looking really good, looking really comfortable, feeling the love, the support. And my 3 votes obviously going to Jeremy Cameron, because when he I mean, I don't know who else to give the 3 votes for too, because no one else can play like Jeremy Cameron. He's just an absolute freak.
Yeah, it'd be pretty tough to go past Jezza. Just looking back on a stat, boys, before we get out of here, Jake Kolajasny faced 5 contested defensive one-on-ones for the game.
Nice.
Only lost 2 of them.
Don't
So
say Jezza.
that's not
The
too bad.
Carlton fans will come find you
Oh
and
yeah.
they'll burn your house down.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Carlton fans, just because they didn't have the better Jezza.
All right, that's it for this episode, the public part of our show. We are about to go on over and talk about Zach Tui in a little bit more detail. As we said, we don't know how many more seasons we'll get the opportunity to just stroke Zach Tui's ego. So we're going to do it over on the Patreon Player Focus. If you want to hear that part of the show, if you want to watch that part of the show, go on over and sign up for your Hoops Crew Patreon membership. Start a 7-day free trial today. You get extended versions of the podcast. That was a bit Frank Walker. Today. Hello. Jake Botel.
Hello.
Our 7-day free trials start today.
I was
So
about
yeah, go
to
and
say
check
you
that
need
out.
to do an advert for the Patreon.
You get extended versions of the pod. You get VFL men's and women's coverage, which is exclusive to the Patreon subscribers. Except for this week, I put the episode up for free on YouTube and Spotify. You also get early access to stuff like behind the play interview episodes from Paul James, Wednesday news wraps from myself and Ben, and other fun things from time to time. That's all from us. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks so much for listening. Thanks to the legend who left us another 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Loved it. Would love to hear more of your 5-star ratings and reviews. But chaps, until next time, go Cats.
Go Cats.
Go Cats.